All right. Hey, welcome. Good morning, everyone. This is, if you're new to this, you've never been to one of these, this is a webinar for the Elliott Wave Trader Crypto Wave service. And as well, we have a sister service on Seeking Alpha called Crypto Waves as well. That service is co-led by myself and Jason Apple. And yeah, been doing this a while, and I do these publicly once a month. Usually go through Bitcoin, Ether, and a selection of altcoins. I'm gonna kind of re-gear it a bit because, especially if you know this, if you followed my work, I consider the August 4th break a very unfortunate break in Bitcoin. If we're going to sustain this bull market, certainly changes the way I see the market, and so that's really going to be the focus. We'll touch on Ether. I'll touch on altcoins. I'm going to say very bluntly and plainly, there may be, if Bitcoin gets its rear in gear, there may be an altcoin rally to come, but I view the altcoin market, we've had a lot of setups that worked earlier in the year, and a lot of the best setups I'm seeing in altcoins are basically being undermined by the market, and that's the way trading goes. And more or less, I see too much of a sort of contagion across altcoins to be very bullish myself. And I have cut back quite a bit of most of my positions. I never trade altcoins very heavily anyway. They are sort of, a little frosting on the cake. But I'm gonna only touch on a couple setups I think are existing or reasonable. That said, I think that the altcoin market is very apt to murder its setups. Basically, forget more failed setups until this market comes back, particularly Bitcoin comes back and starts pulling liquidity together and getting us higher. So that's the focus. Again, Bitcoin is the focus, and I'll touch a little bit on the other things. I also want to make sure that you guys have an understanding of my tactics. A lot of people struggle with the trading tactics versus analysis, and really what the difference is where your book's at. Here, when I say book, I'm talking about your portfolio. That really should shape your tactics, and with an input from market direction. But you shouldn't just say, okay, analyst looking up, I go up. Analyst looking down, I go down. Like, that doesn't make any sense. That's not trading. And so I'm going to kind of try to be a little bit more educational around tactics in the situation from my perspective. But my perspective is really much, again, built upon my book, and also a book that I've made a lot of gain over the last 2 years that I want to maintain. I don't want to lose it. And that's actually more important to me than squeezing out a little bit juice out of a lemon bull market that's may or may not put a strong move in the end. So we'll get into that. Housekeeping, mainly for subscribers. One housekeeping for this webinar is that I didn't even put in a thread. I kind of forgot to, but I think it's applicable to not have requests in this webinar, because we have something to really focus on, which is Bitcoin and the state of this market in general. So I didn't put a request thread out, but that also means no requests. The question box as usual. So if you're not, if you're in the service subscribed, feel free, if there's something that's burning on your mind, put in the request, and as I put the video up and charts up, I can swing over and do a few extra charts as I'm working on those things and getting things wrapped up for the day. So do that. But yeah, if you're not in the service, no requests. The question box, I will ignore them or call you out. I said no requests. Either way. Other housekeeping for subscribers, I'm going to be gone the Labor Day weekend. No webinar that week. Depending on the market action, I definitely can make up a makeup session if action warranted. I'm going to be in. I'm taking the weekend off of my wife, so probably won't do a report either. But I'll shape that weekend as we get closer. I definitely want to be a little bit on if the market's got a reason to be. And then lastly, there's another. And then next, it was supposed to be today, but I forgot we had a multi-public webinar. But given the state of the market, I'm going to ramp up my teaching on arbitraging Wi-Fi or DeFi and centralized exchanges. It's basically sort of interest rate arbitrage, but it is the way I made money in 2022 since the market was crap. Other than accumulating more Bitcoin near the lows and enjoying it in 2023, 24, I was able to make some money in 2022, and I'm going to talk about how I did that. And I'm already going to start kicking off that again because I don't like the state of this market, so I'm going to start making money that way. It makes money whether the market goes up or down, at least in my 1-year trial in 2022. I don't see why it has changed. So we'll talk about that next week. I'm going to say it's complicated, and then some of you guys will struggle with it. But if you don't have any experience in DeFi, you will want to get experience. I'm not going to teach DeFi at a basic level, how to do a transaction, all that. So you'll want to get familiar with Phantom, the use of Phantom Wallet. Well, I say Phantom Wallet, but any Solana wallet that works in DeFi, but Phantom is what I use. And then a wallet for Ether Adjust systems, and I have classically used MetaMask since 2017 or maybe even 2016. I don't know. Whenever I first used it was some time back there, and I've used it ever since. So I'm just more comfortable. I'm sure there's a lot of other options. So you want to get familiar with that, how to do a DeFi transaction, or all of it will go over your head. And I would say also get a little familiar with the sites Aave and Solend. Solend is on Solana, and Aave is on Ether Address chains. So I forget the word for that. There's a word for Ether Address chains, but chains that have an Ether address system, Ether-like address system. Matic, BSC, Phantom, AVAX or Avalanche, et cetera, et cetera. All right, that's it for housekeeping. Let's jump into big. We have a great turnout. I'm surprised with the market condition. Usually when the market is down, we have a lesser turnout. I think we have more people here than I have seen in months. But it's a key time, so that makes sense. And it makes sense to me, but a lot of people kind of hang it up and go surfing during this time of year when the market's weak. So if you're familiar with my work, there's two things that are very important in terms of levels. One, I've been expecting 125K for years, and certainly saw a reason to target 125K after the bottom in 2000. That's this yellow box up here. This bottom up in there's bottom down in 2022. And then also, if you kept up to date in recent action, even if you were not subscribed, you saw articles that I had posted. Perhaps, maybe I probably mentioned in the last monthly webinar, since we've basically gone sideways since March. I probably mentioned it several times since March. This level 50,600, which is key support for this minor fourth wave in this black count. Further, if that 50,600 held, we had a sort of a medium view swing target of this third in 88K, so called out this yellow box. So little yellow box, big yellow box are these big target areas. What has changed, unfortunately, well, in some regards, the question is how exacting you want to be. But of course, we breached 50,600 on August 4th, right? That Sunday was a couple weeks ago. And that breach, I mean, it's really not convincing yet because we've come right back up. The problem is that we're rallying correctively, and that corrective action suggests that we will have another breach of that level right now. We'll go over how that rally is shaping up, how I see it right now, and whether there's a chance that the low on August 4th becomes a very important low. That's going to be an important question. And so we'll try to talk through that and figure out. It's actually fairly soupy, pretty messy, and highly theoretical, which is, at the end of the day, I like to be less theoretical and far more practical, and so it'll be very difficult in that regard. But needless to say, if we have another breach of this low we had on August 4th, my view will change that we are in this red count at best. And I say at best because there is an entire possibility now that we have topped in this bullish cycle and are ready to go barreling downhill. What will be very important is I don't have a clear bullish view. Well, I have a bullish view of Bitcoin long term, but I don't have a bullish view of this cycle. If we breach 40, it's like 42.9. And I'm not going to argue about sort of dollars and cents. It's just if we get a very clean break of 43 and don't look back, this bull market will be over in my view. Or at the very least, there isn't any support until 30K. And after that, there isn't any support until 15K, and after that, there's no support through 7K. And I can see reasonable scenario where we run through all of that. Again, we'll go level by level as we always trade. Given tactically speaking, I'll give the bottom line on my tactics personally is I de-risk in alts big time, partly because I just don't see anything in alts that's desirable right now. Every setup that I've been tracking, well, not all of them, but most of them have broken one by one. Subscribers in Elliott Wave Trader, we have a request process so they can request any chart they want. And I haven't seen any good charts come from the request side of the service. They've all been pretty terrible. And so, and I'm not trying to fault subscribers for that. It's just, you know, like I just haven't seen any good charts come my way. I don't want to pick on anybody for that, but that's just what I've seen. And so I've de-risked across the altcoin. I barely had positions previously because none of the setups are really working. And so I don't, you know, I put more money into working trades, especially in altcoins. I don't put, you know, if I've never had a chance to have a reason to add something that's not working, I never have a reason to add. I don't put on too much risk while things are trying to find a bottom, potentially in a reversal zone. I only put small amount of risk on, and I just never saw a reason to get very risky. But I even de-risk further. I just don't see point in having capital in the altcoin space, you know, except for a few odds and ends. And so that's number one. Number two, I mean, you guys know I've de-risked from miners, Bitcoin miners for a year. They've been sideways, and that's been good. You know, I'm looking for setups for them to break out, still not seeing them. And so don't need to do any changes there. I've taken a shot at CLSK recently. Don't have a lot of capital on it. We'll see if it works or it doesn't. Now the question is Bitcoin tactics. Oh, and then again on Ether, you guys know that if you follow my work, that I called out the problems in the Ether Bitcoin pair many months ago, and so I de-risk in Ether. Well, I slammed the sell button this week. I'm just I'm not flat in Ether, but I'm very close now. I hung on to some of it a little too long, despite my relatively bearish view. It's not a bearish view so much as it's a relative bear view to Bitcoin. And now I'm really focused on what do I do with my Bitcoin holdings. Now my long-term cold wallet holdings are going nowhere. Those are hodl till I die or give to my children or whatever. But now I'm, you know, evaluating whether to de-risk further. And really what I'm doing there is watching to see if we breach the August 4th, or set up to breach the August 4th low, because I don't, after seeing like a 3x run in net to here, is that roughly, yeah, it's roughly about true, 3x run down to here. It would have been more if I sold everything on top. I'd only sold a little profit taking at the top. Then, you know, I don't want to lose any more. Like I want to enjoy that 3x gain, and I can always go back as the setup improves. So for me, the line in the sand for significant de-risking is first, ideally, I hope to see a setup before we breach the August 4th low. But definitely, if we breach that low, I'm going to have to run from the hills again, not with every Bitcoin I have, but a significant amount, and de-risk from the space. Just wait for sunnier days. Okay, so that's kind of an overall my tactics. If you're starting from a different spot, you're going to have different tactics, and if we go through the charts, we'll talk a bit more about that. All right, so let's jump. So hopefully I've given you the lay of the land. Again, the breach August 4th was bad. It wasn't a convincing breach, but neither is a convincing rally out of that, and we'll dig into that. That's really the bottom line. And then the last support I have for a viable bull market is 42.9. Now, the other thing I forgot to say is that if we break that again, right now we're in the sort of interstitial zone between the two counts, black and red, nothing convincing. If we break that low again, I'm purely in the red count, and that lowers my target to 95 nominally with potential to run up to 111. That's basically all I get out of it. I have no reason to see the market going to 125K. So a substantial loss of all the target, again, even if we hold 43 but break the August 4th low. So that is significant as well. And then I know I've said a lot of this fast. In some regards, I feel like I'm gabbing on, but I think all of this is very important. But if there's anything I've said too fast, you want me to go back, you know, again, just ready your questions, and I'm going to stop and answer questions on this chart in particular before we get on to Ether and all of that. Okay, so that's kind of the lay of the land. That's where we're at. You know, changes. I mean, you know, some people don't like changes of view because they rather the analyst had, you know, a beautiful crystal ball that always knew the future. Personally, I would never want to follow anyone that didn't change their mind when new information came out to play. That's a no-go. So, you know, some people, you know, the question is, again, how do you tactically change your approach and not take drastic action when the analysts are following changes view? And so that's what I hope to deal with a bit more. And I also would just invite you to say, again, I cannot give personal recommendations, But we can talk hypothetically. If you're coming new to the Bitcoin market, your tactics should be very different from, say, myself, who largely bought the bottom, not perfectly like bottom ticked it, but basically accumulated into the bottom of 2022. And now here I am with a large gain. Why would I want to give it up? So that guides my tactics in a certain way. And I can always play more setup smaller and make sure that I don't give up more, playing all of my capital on the swing chart. And again, I'm not doing anything. I'm still a hodler. I'm still a long-term Bitcoin bull. I'm just a little bit more cautious short-term. So I just want to, I don't want to do anything with my dedicated long-term cold wallet holdings. There's no reason to do anything with that. I set those, so I'm comfortable hodling, continuously, barring serious financial duress or something like that. All right, so ready your questions for that. I'll just have to be careful how I answer it, so I don't put myself in the place of giving advice. But we can brainstorm together how to get there. So now the question is this setup here, and why do I call it problematic? Well, you can see right off the bat, 1, 2A. If you know Elliott wave, that's already a problem, right? So we haven't kept an impulsive rally off this low, and so let's get ourselves looking at this action. Well, looks like I've got. Yeah, so sorry, let me orient myself a bit more. So the first problem is I don't even think at overnight action, this is what I had going into yesterday. I'm not quite sure if this overnight action even supports the way I laid out for this 10, but laid out for this third. So sorry, I didn't check out the action we had this morning. In fact, I know it doesn't. In fact, if we are going to work out this one, we're going to need to get another fourth in here. So let me move things to the right. But basically, the best hope we have here of rallying, holding on to this August 4th low is a diagonal. It's basically a corrective pattern. It's basically, a diagonal is like, well, it's kind of like, I want the market to hold. I would prefer it. Everyone would prefer it. So let's make sure we don't miss the opportunity if it does hold. But the problem here is that the probability of it holding is very low when you have a diagonal. That's just a very important point. Every time I'm tracking a diagonal, at least in my mind, and I try to warn people, it's most likely going to break, but we'll track it if we can. And worse than that, after this 1, 2, we've got an AB. This is clearly 3 waves off this 2. That's an A. We did hold the support to the B barely, and again with a spiked breach, just like the spike breach we had at 5,600, which it's probably good to mark out that level. I'm not going to bother doing it, but it's right about here. So we're in between the zone for the red count, and we're below the previous blue box I had up here for the black count. And anyway, so now we have a potential diagonal for this one of C of 3. So this is a mess. This is absolutely a mess, and I don't personally believe all this, but I've seen many times these sort of, as Jason and I call it, janky bottoms that take a long time to fill out. They end up working. We don't believe them all the way, and they do work. So I suspend disbelief for the time that is uptrending off of that low, but we really don't have any reliable structure here to say that it holds. And I'm personally ready for this to just bail. But so far it's held the very minor support at B. So we'll see if it works. The other thing is I want to say about this, and I think I'm actually done after that, but we'll see, is that filling in 5 waves to here definitely, even though we're in the interstitial, as I call it, between the black count and the red count, where this 5 is landing up is very much more supports the red count. So if we fill in 5 waves as here, that would give us a wave 2 down here to set up. And I will go ahead and draw that because I think that's going to be important. If you're like me and you de-risked right here and you're climbing up into this 5 and you're like, well, I just took a bunch off and now we may be going to 100. I'm a little upset. That's not something you have to worry about because we will get a wave 2 here. And this, what a point was making earlier, is that this wave 2 has far better confluence with the lower value of 95, or it has almost has no relation here. The only difference I would see is if this diagonal kind of continues to grind and extend and get this sort of roughly 73 level just right up to 88K. Then we would find ourselves back in black count. Then we can look forward to another wave 4, and then we'll make a 6-figure. So there's still a lot to see in this action before we know really what's going on. But right now, my leaning is that even if we fill in all 5 waves to blue, we're actually in the red count, just simply because the Fibonacci structure of this, it just points far more to the lower number of 95. It points past 88K. Hopefully that makes sense to you. So anyway, that's where I'm going to paint this. I'm going to paint this actually red, because it would fit the red count. I'm keeping red over here. Actually, I'm going to move it right now. So that's the alternate. I'll move it right now, even though if we bail, we've got another support in red down here. Hopefully that's understood. So anyway, that's where we're at with this. My bottom line is this: I don't trust it until it fills all the way in. Again, like I said earlier, tactically speaking, if you de-risk, you've been scared out, you sold the bottom, there's still another chance to add in this too and carry on all the way up to 100K. So, and again, when I de-risk, I always de-risk partially. I don't make any drastic moves in my entire portfolio, especially with the size that I built up over the last few years. It doesn't make any sense to make very drastic moves. So I didn't panic sell the bottom. I sort of let it flush itself out. I always know also when Bitcoin always hits 30 RSI. For some reason, the daily 30 RSI on Bitcoin works, where it hardly works on any other assets. It doesn't mean that you have a new all-time high off of 30 RSI, but generally you do have a very strong rally. That's certainly what we've seen. So we poked through the 30 daily RSI. Definitely some panic selling. We've come up strongly off of that. Again, the question is whether do we come up into a viable reversal that's going to get us to new all-time highs, or do we come up correctively as we have been and then just simply fail after 3 waves? Failing after 3 waves, forming an impulsive downward move off 3 waves will definitely push us down into the to the red count. In one regards, I feel like I've gabbed on a lot, but I wanted to make sure I gave sufficient detail. Especially some people asked me yesterday, man, want to just hear all the things in your sort of brain dump. I thought I gave it all in the reports all week, but I want to make sure here that all of the details that are sitting in my brain are out there on the table, both tactically and sort of analysis-wise. But again, if I have said anything too fast, do ask me to go back and review it. There are several bottom lines as I put them, like this is how I simply see it. I hope I communicated that. And then again, I hope you understand my tactics, but again, I don't think my tactics are copy and paste for anyone. That's something I always say. It really, really depends on what you're starting with, whether you have 0 on right now, or whether you have a very heavy portfolio and want to secure all your gains, or if you accumulated very heavily into this bottom or something like that. So there's all sorts of different situations where people have put themselves into the market, and you really should shape your tactics according to your risk tolerances and again where your entries are and all of that, so on and so forth. So let's take a break here and do questions on Bitcoin. I usually go through Ether first, but this is really the sort of the center of crypto liquidity right here. This is where we're going to get an understanding what the market's going, not staring at other charts, staring at altcoins, meme coins, and all that. It's really the liquidity flows into Bitcoin and out of Bitcoin into the rest of the market. So it's very important that we understand it first. So yeah, let me take your questions. Let's see. Are you Aver to Solflare for Oslana? I have had a Solflare wallet. I think you're assuming Aware. I have had a Solflare wallet. I don't think I've ever actually used it. I think I've loaded the app and never used it. So that's about as far as I go on that. It is the first post-halving that is heavily influenced by government and counts selling Bitcoin, not the market so much. I don't take the I never take the exogenous view. So yeah, so I mean, like that's a nice thought and everything, but that's not how I operate in markets. I mean, all the markets I trade have heavily government influenced law. I don't just trade in crypto. I trade in E-mini and this analysis technique that I'm works across those. Though a lot of intimacy with those markets matters, so I tend to follow my team. Anyway, so I don't really care whether this halving space has more institutional involvement. That does not change the analysis. I take the view of them from the market itself, not from what's going on around the market, if that makes sense. Who is the speaker? I assume you're asking who I am. I am Ryan Wilday. You came in here, you must have come in off Twitter, so you came off my Twitter account. Anyway, and if you don't know who I am, I can give you my biography. But so you're predicting the shortest, smallest bull market after BTC having ever experienced. Very interesting contrarian position. Yeah, and I predicted, quote unquote. I hate the word prediction. First of all, acts like I'm some magician wizard with a crystal ball. And ultimately, have I always been right in my quote unquote predictions? Absolutely not. Have I been able to take my analysis and make money off my own analysis? Absolutely. Analysis should be a constant view of adjusting. So I am so what would change my view that this is the shortest distance after having? Well, I don't know if it is in time. Definitely is shaping up to be in terms of price in log, but yeah, no, I have been expecting this having to be weak for 3 years, not because I sat here and go, oh, this cycle of having is going to be weak, but simply I don't pay attention to having. I know people in the Bitcoin space, I don't pay attention to having cycles in terms of making theses, simply because we have 3 past data points. This is the 4th that we have 3 past data points. Who the hell makes a strategy off 3 data points? No one that's a professional trader, but of course the Bitcoin world likes to. No one does that in actual TradFi. You don't have enough data points. Has it worked so far? Yeah, generally, but yeah, no, this one is so far kind of weak compared to the rest of them. We should expect that when you're trying to work a strategy off three data points. That is simply not enough. So anyway, so I don't think anyone should be surprised that we've got a weak one. That's just basic. Actually, they've been getting weaker since the first one, but I don't think that even that sequential weakness, like the next one should be strong in my view. Well, so maybe no, next one may be okay, and then the one after that should be very strong based on this price structure in Bitcoin. But again, that's prediction. We'll get there when we get there. And I don't know if I'll be in this business by then, because it'll be probably another decade or so, right? We'll see. A decade's a long time from now. Anyway, so that was a lot in that question. Political question, I guess. If Harris wins, the election will affect the Bitcoin market. If so, how? Well, one, again, I just said it earlier, I do not predict based on the market. Certainly, I expect if Harris wins the election, for her to be more likely to clamp down on Bitcoin, or at least her, especially if the Democrats win the House and Senate. I would assume that, but I don't know if that matters. Bitcoin is a global asset. Why are we so focused on America? Because we have all the money? I mean, I don't know. Like I don't think you can jump from one conclusion to price action. That's the problem. People like to do that, and if you actually track it, doesn't even have a very strong correlation. You might get a day run up, or a day run up when one candidate says this or that, or someone in something happens to Gensler, this or that. I mean, how many people in the Ripple space have been ultra bullish since the SEC lost the first case, right? But it hasn't done squat, right? Get out of the political stuff, get out of the political game, and ultimately it may have more impact on how Americans deal in the crypto space, because maybe our rights are clamped down on potentially. Maybe maybe Harris will have a change of mind. I'm not, some people say she has. I don't see any evidence of that. But that doesn't have anything to do with price. I know some people don't want to believe that. It doesn't have anything to do with price. And just do your own homework on, past political decisions versus the markets, and you'll see it. Let's see. Lots of questions. People are obviously new. Chart in your analysis of Ether. Yeah, I'll get there. I think it's junk. I shouldn't say junk. I just don't think it's in a good spot. But we'll get there. All right. What else? See, if your average price is 50K for Bitcoin and you wanted to preserve capital, what price would be your red line? Well, I mean, you've got to. I mean, if you want to preserve your winnings, you probably should take some off now. You might consider. Again, I'm not giving that as a recommendation. I'm just saying, think about it. We're at 59, and think about how Bitcoin can have a day and run through from 59 to 43, as fast as it wants to. You might consider preserving some of it, right? Don't you think? You might. I mean, because I can't promise you that, tomorrow we wake up in the morning and Bitcoin is down in the mid 40s. I mean, how can anyone promise you otherwise, right? That's normal Bitcoin movement, right? I mean, I will be a dip buyer in 49. That's the only thing, because I know that sort of flush will have a rebound, but I may just be trading that very short term. Okay, so I think you have a choice. Like I always say, like if you have a price that you got an entry in, you decide what your red line is. You shouldn't be asking me actually. Like, what is your red line? Like, just sit here and go, okay, I got 50K entry. How much of this 50K entry do I want to keep right now and here? And how much am I allowed to risk on? That's what you should be asking yourself. And I really can't answer that for you, right? But you might consider it. You might consider just locking some in potentially again, but you can't decide that until you've done the internal homework. You've got to reach deep down inside your head and use your imagination. What happens to your not just your financial situation, but your feelings, your sentiment, your internal sentiment. If you all of a sudden you wake up tomorrow and Bitcoin is at 49 or 45 or something like that, because that's a very reasonable drop. Again, even in 24 hours ago, it wants to. I don't see a setup for that right now. That's different, but I'm just saying it can. Like, let's not have a failure of imagination, right? Which I think is a very important term. When you're doing risk management on your portfolios, don't have a failure of imagination, right? A lot of that's what happens, when we get pops of leverage, right? These people that put on futures contracts, I do sometimes myself, they don't imagine getting a stop out, and then all of a sudden they're imploding. They don't understand, they don't imagine that they're going to get hit by slippage, and where their stop is, they're going to actually get out a much lower. Like that's a failure of imagination. Don't have that. All right, you got to be on top of that from a risk standpoint. All right, so I can't tell you the answer, but you got to do the internal homework. I mean, think about it. We're at 58 right now. We may go back to 40s again. I'm not predicting the 40s. I'm just saying we can't easily. And you have to decide whether you want to work off easily or work on probable, right? You have to make those decisions. Right now, I'm not saying going to mid 40s from here is probable, but it's very reasonable. Okay, that's the way I'm going to talk as an analyst. Like, what's probable versus what's reasonable. And in that reasonable side is not going to have a failure of imagination. I'm going to be realistic, and you have to manage it that way. Like, it's hard for a lot of people to grasp that. They want crystal balls, right? I work off risk to reward and advantageous entries. Like, it's a different mindset. This is an advantageous place to enter. Not here, but like at 50 was, because that was a support level. Advantageous place to enter doesn't mean that it holds. Right? It just means that was a good price of recent range, so to speak. I didn't do any entries at 50. I was more worried about preserving at that point, because that's just where I was at. All right. Let's see. You are hedging both directions, not getting anything out of this. No, I am still long Bitcoin, so I am net long, but I am reduced. Okay, does that make sense? I'm not hedging both directions. I make money if we go up right now. Okay, but I'm de-risked from where I was at. I locked in some gains. Okay, does that make sense? A lot of people like work off this like you're all in, all out, right? Like I work on variable. I tend in my investing to work off variable levels of long and opportunistic shorts. I don't see any opportunistic shorts right now. I'm not, when I mean shorting, I mean in the futures market, and I usually mean day trading. I don't see any optimistic shorts right now. I'm net long Bitcoin. Okay, I will always be net long Bitcoin. The question is how much, and I am less long Bitcoin than I was 2 weeks ago. That makes sense? Okay, I'm only getting money if I would keep going up, right? I just will now make a little less money if we go up, except that if I see this setup out here, I'll be more long. If this one works, so we see 5 waves to roughly 73, and we see this wave 2, I will buy the wave 2. And it may break, but I will buy the wave 2, because that's a setup that I like for trading. So I will go more long, and I will probably put substantially on more, because I took a lot of ether off. So I'll be actually probably more long Bitcoin at that too, but I will only be long briefly if it doesn't work. Does that make sense? It's funny how people talk. It's funny how people, I mean, I feel like you turn my analysis and we may go up and we may go down. What I care about is probabilistically. I don't care about we may go up, may go down. What are the probabilities? And I'm not going to give you a calculation, but we broke support. The next support is 43. Okay, that will be a very good entry if it holds. Okay, so buying a little bit of 43 is reasonable. Okay, And the probability of this low breaking again is high right now. Okay, but if it fill in 5 waves to here, it becomes low. Okay, so I only think about this probabilistically. I don't think of it as like we may go up, we go down. Okay, I'm just saying what levels and what scenarios make this more likely than the other. Okay, that's all I care about. All right, does that make sense? And right now, it's reasonably likely this level breaks. Okay, but that doesn't mean that this setup doesn't fill in and work out. I mean, it's just simply, you know, reversals need to fill in, they need to backfill. If you're you know, sort of old school technical analysis, if you're into the Elliott wave as I am, we have a diagonal, and if that diagonal fills us all the way out and we get a wave two will have a support probably around 59, but I don't know yet. That will be a good entry as well. So I'm just simply, I'm not asking the question, I'm not really talking about whether to go up or down. I'm talking about where do I want to enter? Where is it an advantageous entry? Where is it advantageous for me personally to de-risk, and why? And then what will it take for me to get more aggressive back into this market, right? Versus continuing to ratchet up the risk management and de-risk a lot more. Well, if we break 43, I'm going to de-risk substantially. So to me, it's only if this then that. It's not we can go up or down. Like it's a lot more thoughtful than that. And a lot of people like to take it down to because they like very simplistic notions, and I just don't see the market that way. All right. Let's see. Larger degree action off the March top is clearly corrective. Yes, but Bitcoin, so that's a really great point, and I appreciate that question. Okay, very, very good question. The question is, and I know the person is understanding Elliott wave to a certain degree. When you come off a top, it certainly helps to know that that the market is corrective because it's most versus an impulsive top. If an impulsive top forms, you're more than likely going to enter a bear market. The problem with Bitcoin is that most often tops in a corrective structure that then forms into a diagonal. So if we go into, let me get way back here. Okay, so we're corrective off this top for sure, right? Okay, we were also corrective. Well, that one looks actually a bit more impulsive, but we were corrective in this area. So a lot of tops in Bitcoin forms correctively looking. Some other examples, and then ends up, yeah, this is a great example. So comes off the top correctively and then ends up in a leading diagonal, tops in B, and then comes down. So the COVID top, so to speak, this was well below COVID, but a year before COVID, that top came in as a diagonal. So I would have, you know, when we were here, and I know for sure when we were here, I was like, well, this is corrective. We could put in another high, and then we broke a level of two support. So again, going back to this, okay, this is corrective for sure, but if it breaks 43, it's swinging it, probably most likely swinging into a leading diagonal that's going to result in it dropping at least to 15. Okay, so to me, levels is more important than the sort of academic view of structure. Does that make sense? It's levels. The same thing goes with you may say, okay, I'm talking about diagonal versus impulse. Well, we know that a diagonal has to at least get to the 1.618 of the 2, and that is 69. So this diagonal, at least to be legitimate, needs to reach 69K. Okay. So that's again where the levels come in versus the academic view of all the subwaves and blah blah blah. That's noise to a certain degree. All right. If we get another flush, is it correct that you will assume that the bear market is still unfolding, never finished? It will be, well, it depends on what you call your bear markets, right? But it would basically mean, again, if we break, it's not another flush. If we hold 43 and nail it and head to 100, obviously we're not in a bear market. That's, again, we can hold 43 and go to 100. So that level is super key. But below 43, I've got nothing, not until 30K. But I would just view it as the first thing would be A, B, C. Okay, so this fourth extended way out, that would be the view. And then we still have the chance at 125K. What's interesting is that this 125K to 195K zone is sort of a important zone. It's kind of gold really off of this 1, 2 and length of this 3. So it's kind of gold, and I'm surprised to see it not hit. So just the fact that the market has misaligned with this level up here at 125 is an early warning that it could sink down before it sets up for another. I know it's weird, it's voodoo magic and all of that, but these sort of confluences where two structures line up for a target, it tends to be reliable. Again, it was this time different, it could be for sure, but that's definitely a warning. So again, back to the question, sorry, that was a tangent, is that I would say A, B, C. If we break this substantially, go to 10 between 10 and 7, then it would be a reset of, it'd be like a long, that would make this into a super large P wave. So 43 is key, is the bottom line, right? We don't need to have on substantial risk below 43. There's no point in it. I will have some on because I always keep some level of Bitcoin. Again, so this is where people say, okay, Ryan, we're going down. Why would you hold some Bitcoin? I run a portfolio of my long-term money. Like, it doesn't care about 43 versus 15. My swing trading is what I've got to manage. It does care about 43 versus 15. You know, I always recommend to people that you should manage money on different timelines. Why? Because you know, while swing trading down here was doing nothing, my long-term money was accumulating in the zone, and you know, that paid off, right? So you know, again, it allows you to sort of manage different time frames. The difference is that the long-term money has to be smaller because it has to deal with bigger price fluctuations, right? If I ever lost my job, lost all my trading money and all of that, got sick, had cancer, whatever, the only thing that's going to help me is my long-term money, right? Well, it has to be smaller, at least smaller in terms of dealing with the swings. I can't, you know, I can't lose 75% of my, you know, substantial wealth here if 43 breaks, right? If I had too much in Bitcoin, so I had all my net worth in Bitcoin. A lot of people just put all their net worth in Bitcoin. I can't do that because it's fairly easy for you to have I've been through life problems. You know, it's very easy to get one when the market's down. Very easy. All right, so that's probably more than what you asked for, but that would be my view. So pay taxes by selling and buy again makes no sense. Well, I trade in an IRA for a substantial level of my Bitcoin, so I don't pay taxes. Yeah, no, that's a problem, right? So you have a choice. I mean, I pay near the highest tax rate. I'm not fully there, but no, that is difficult, right? But do the math. I mean, below 43, you're going to lose a lot. You're going to lose 75% versus whatever your tax rate is, right? Or you're very likely to, and that's the probabilities that you have to deal with. So yeah, no, I would rather pay my, you know, 30+% tax rate. I mean, after write-ups and all that, smaller than that, but I'd rather pay that than lose 75%. So I'm just doing the math. I get it, but actually, no, the best thing I ever did was set up an IRA with Bitcoin in it. And I mean spot Bitcoin, not ETFs or anything like that. That was the best thing I ever did. So a lot of my swing trading happens in my IRA, but some trading happening outside my IRA. Anyway, something to think about. But yeah, no, you got to think about those taxes for sure. Let's see, while likely not ideal as a trade vehicle, are these funds that correlate well to Bitcoin in your experience? Are we talking about ETFs? The ETFs should correlate to spot Bitcoin less fees. Should be very simple. As long as they don't have problems like, you know, oh, they don't really have the Bitcoin or whatever. I don't want to necessarily recommend, you know, I've written articles which one I have. I don't want to necessarily recommend them, but they should, if they're working properly, correlate. I assume you're talking about the ETFs. They should correlate to Bitcoin. You know, except for the futures ETF, that's different. BIDO, that's different. But you know, FBTC, HODL, IBIT, those funds should correlate to Bitcoin less fees. Simple as that. If they're working properly. There's always some risk, right? Like their custody goes bad, they get a breach, and they lose money and all of that. All right. If we want to accumulate Bitcoin, then buy dips. Otherwise, move out entirely. Solana has more profit potential. Yeah, I'm cautious on the Solana chart even more than Bitcoin. I have been for a year, well, not for a year, for a while now. So anyway, and I'm not going through it on this video, but you know, subscribers know it quite well. I've been cautious on it. I think it still has another high at 400, but that's very much, we'll see. We'll see. The top may be in Solana, but we'll see. I've been viewing it that way for a while, but there's some levels to hold below us. I think it's 100. Pretty even, or 99 or something like that is where I call it the top, something like that. Can your red count not be a 1 2 1 2? I don't know how. You'd have to draw a chart for me. If you're a subscriber, you're gonna have to show me. I don't know. I don't see a 1 2 1 2. What are your thoughts on Bitcoin options? Do you use them? The Americans, you can't really. That's the problem. We've had Well, we have limitations, right? So I used to use Durabit before they kicked off Americans. It was awesome. I went to Ledger X. It was terrible. Never had liquidity. They were actually getting out of the business anyway after they got bought by MAX Exchange. So I've basically liquidated my Ledger X account anyway. And then you can do futures options. They're not very liquid. I can't get good fills. And we have BIDO options, but you don't want to do that because they have a terrible, with the dividends, they're not dividend adjusted. So you don't want to buy calls. You should only buy puts. So that's stupid. You know, so if the ETFs have options coming, great. You know, I'll be playing with those for sure, but we don't have them yet. So as an American, I don't have the option to do options. Then I know, tell me if there's another option that I'm missing. That's a lot of options, unintended. How can you buy, guys? I use Kingdom Choice. I'm not read. Now, I've had problems with Kingdom Choice, or they call it Choice Digital now. You can follow them. I set it up legally and all that. Got it into my IRA. So yeah, they have Bitcoin, and they actually allow you to cold wallet some of it, and you got to just report your holdings back to them if you got it in cold wallet, so they can track it for forms and stuff like that. So yeah, you check it out, Choice. I'm not necessarily recommending them because I had a hard time with their compliance team to get it to where I can use a cold wallet. It was a bit of a pain in the butt. There are other issues I have with the platform, but the platform allows you to switch between stocks and a very limited set of crypto, but all I really care about is Bitcoin. They even have Doge. I've traded that a little bit in there. They had Link. They had Solana for a while, but then when SEC started coming after Solana, they made it exit only. So they've had other options. You can check it out. There are other options out there. You know, you can also set up your own 401k if you have your own business and use like Gemini and stuff like that. So yeah, there are other options. It's just the legal stuff that you have to go through. I have enough invested in the space that it was a must. And back to the tax question still, like I pay my taxes on my swing portfolio too. And yeah, sometimes I've got to make a move that's going to cause me to pay those taxes. But again, like all I care about is that I'm making more after taxes. You know, I'm making some substantial amount of money after taxes in the end of the day. So yeah, sometimes it sucks. I've got to pay my taxes. But again, Bitcoin, 30% tax rate, whatever you pay. You know, I think I net out closer to 20 when I've got all my write-offs and standard deductions and blah blah blah. But you know, 20% tax payment versus a very, you know, that's like 2 days in Bitcoin. I mean, you got to de-risk. You got to de-risk. So I don't know if I understand the concern over the taxes versus the risk of holding personally, that question. But yeah, I understand some people want to make sure that that they're not paying the government as little as possible. I totally get that, but you know, I only care about my net, and I manage that accordingly. Let's see, Sol double. Yeah, sound like you got a crystal ball, Mark. Solana will double before Bitcoin. Okay, you know, you might be right. Like, sounds like I don't have a crystal ball. I'm just giving you my probabilities. There'll be a recording of this video. I mean, if you've got a crystal ball, then you know exactly what it's doing, and if that works for you, then do it. I don't trade with a crystal ball. I trade with probabilities, and I'm telling you what I see in Solana. I think it go to 100. I don't think it will go to. I think it can go to 400. I don't think it will go to 400 with Bitcoin dropping to 43. We know that Bitcoin takes the market with it. I can be wrong on that. Of course, we've occasionally seen the setup working in altcoin when Bitcoin was puking. So it may still do that, but if it breaks 100, I would rule that out, or 99 or something like that. I'm quoting that. I would have to actually check my charts to get the level. And I don't see, again, like, man, like, I'm gonna ask you this, like, really hardcore. Don't have a just say it, like, don't have a failure of imagination. If you're super long something and you're not sitting here going, well, what is, you know, I'm just cheerleading this coin up to the moon, and you don't have the imagination of what might kill you, you aren't really trading or investing very wise. I'm just going to be frankly honest. A lot of crypto, you know, you go on Twitter and you've got crypto bros going, you know, this coin's going to moon, blah, 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 blah. And they're sitting here 5 years later. I've been in the space a long time, and they're still saying the same damn, garbage about their coin, and it has not gone anywhere. Now, I like Solana. I use it daily, and even if Solana goes downhill, I will still be using its DeFi. I think it's a fabulous network from a UI interaction standpoint. I don't get too deep into the security of it. I assume it's great because there haven't been too many hacks, but I think it's a fabulous network and I would rather use it any day versus Ethereum. But we have not seen, I have been in the space a long time, and we have not necessarily seen a direct link between adoption and price. Yes, Solana has been fabulous for 2 years, but that doesn't mean it will continue. Again, I have been in this space, well, I've been in the space over 10 years, but I mean, trading it actively 6 now. And you just cannot make these assertions from, oh, Solana's a great network, therefore price will moon. It doesn't make any sense. It's like, it does not work that way. So be careful. Okay, how do you feel about miners like Marathon and CLSK? Marathon is terrible. CLSK currently has a potential setup. But I have not been bullish. Like I said earlier, I have not been bullish on Bitcoin miners, or I shouldn't say I have not been outright bullish on Bitcoin miners. And I've been warning about them for over a year. Maybe it's been 2 years now. Just the price action is terrible. Will they set up and run? I am skeptical. I do not see anything good in those charts. They're just plain and simple. Again, like all of my opinions are strong opinions, loosely held, right? Same thing like on Solana. Like I can be absolutely wrong on it, right? But I'm telling you right now, Solana, should not rally if Bitcoin is not gonna hold support, right? And I'm happy to be wrong. With miners, I have very little interest in those charts. I am watching them for a setup to allow me to change my mind. I have been watching for that setup for 2 years. They have been in a range for well over a year while Bitcoin tripled. That is a problem, right? Like that is a problem. I don't care about all this talk about the markets not valuing them properly, all of this. That's nonsense. They are where they are, and if they're gonna run, they're gonna set up. There is no setup. There is just simply no setup in those charts. And I don't know what else to say. Like, show me, I own a little bit of Marathon, but I'm not very happy about that position. CLSK, I put on a new position because it has a setup. I'm not convinced that setup is going to hold. It was enough to put a small bit of capital. Probabilistically speaking, a small bit of capital to see where it goes is worth it. And the nice thing about anything in the crypto space is you put a little bit on and it does work. You can make a very immense gain very quickly. But if it doesn't work, I don't want to have a whole lot of risk on. And the miners look all around pretty terrible. Man, Mark, you are Solana EFT on the, you mean ETF on the horizon. Okay, I mean, that's great. Like we have Ether ETF that just happened, right? Did ETF fly to the moon? Nope. Like it's not a given that if you have an ETF, it's gonna fly. Ask the Ethereum people right now. They're kind of hurting over that one. They're a little bit bruised. All right, do you think there is a bright future for Phantom Sonic? I don't know what Phantom Sonic is. I know the Phantom Network. Is that what you mean? I don't like it. I don't like the price. I mean, I don't know about the network. The network just works like Avalanche to me. Like I don't know if I know the difference because I've used it, but we're talking about Phantom, the network, but the chart's awful. So I'm not bullish on it. If we're talking about price, I'm not bullish. The network itself, I don't have opinion. I just know I didn't think much of it. So, for me, I try to simplify like what are the main networks I want to use, and in the Ethereum space, I use Matic. I'm not bullish on Matic token at all. Like the price has failed multiple setups. I was bullish and it has continued to fail. So I got to turn my opinion. Again, strong opinions loosely held is important. And but I still use the Matic network regularly. Part of that's just because I got used to it and the fees are cheap. Like that's it. Yeah, I don't care about the token itself. And then I use the Solana network very regularly, and that one's fabulous. So, lightning fast, and the UI is fabulous, and the dApps are great. Like I love the Solana network. But again, I'd separate the network that I love versus the price of the token. I just follow the chart for the price. Simple as that. So I don't know about Phantom. Like I'm not terribly interested in the Phantom network, if that's what you mean. Many people do not understand how to buy crypto and can now buy crypto ETFs and retirement accounts, so pent-up demand will be satisfied as these start to settle down. Yeah, but I don't, again, people are buying ETFs. So the problem is those same people will sell the ETFs if we start barreling downhill. Again, like think about, man, I mean, just think about what people are doing with their Nvidia stock as it starts rolling downhill. I mean, the people start to bail. Like that's the thing. It's like what goes up must come down. At some point in time, it starts breaking support. People freak out. They sell. Then of course the ETF managers have to go out to the spot market and sell crypto to rebalance the shares. And then it's a feedback loop. So, just because you have an ETF doesn't mean that the price goes up. Unfortunately, that's not the way markets work. If it was only that simple. Auto investing every day is what props up equity markets now, and that is not actively traded. Yeah, but have you been in a big equity bear? I mean, at some point in time, we'll see the S&P back at, down 50% again, just like, and I've been through 2000, 2003, 2004, 5, 6, 7, and then you had the 8, 9, right? So like, if you haven't been through a big equity bear market, you'll see. So it's just because people take it out of their payday doesn't mean that the market props up, right? It can run straight through, and those people can be compelled to sell at some point in time. All right, we bothered on these things. You guys gotta look at market history a bit. All right, Ether. We'll go through that. Man, that was a long time on just Bitcoin. So again, I'm going to start with Ether Bitcoin pair. That's the most important thing here. So people understand that it's not that I'm bearish on Ether. It's just that I have a choice to hold two assets that have similar beta, Bitcoin, Ether. And based on this chart, which is the comparative performance of Ether versus Bitcoin, again, I asked, why would I want to own Ether versus Bitcoin? Strong downtrend. Now, what you're not seeing is I had several levels of support that never created a rally for where this pair could turn. We are sitting on a support right now. This rally is corrective. Most likely this support breaks. So I am waiting for a setup even then, just in a B wave, for where I might say, okay, for a brief period of time, I can put a bit more capital back over in Ether, but that setup is not here. I have no interest. Okay, so I just want to frame it up like that. I'm not bearish on Ether. But again, I want to put my capital where is most, I have to sort of balance risk versus return. And Ether has basically the same volatility risk as Bitcoin, plain and simple, but does not have the potential return versus Bitcoin set up in this chart. Simple as that. So I want to put my capital where it's best from a risk to reward standpoint in the best spot. That's the most important thing. All right, we go to the chart. Now, the chart is like, all of that kind of shows in the chart. So previously I had a target of 10, 11,000 up in here, right? I've held this out for a long period of time. Again, people who want crystal balling want to assume that was a crystal ball. It's going to come true. It still may come true, okay? But I have less faith of it now in what I see in the charts than I have in the past. Zooming in, so I have a blue count which can get us to hold. Now the crazy thing is, if we hold this blue count, we've got a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and the next fifth wave is most likely the replacement for this. So we are done, and that target is now 6,000 after breaking support here. Zooming in, we have the same corrective rally off this low that suggests most likely we're going to 1900 for at least the final low. Well, ideally the final low in this blue count before we run to 6,000 and put all-time high in, and likely a cyclical top at 6,000. But right now, if we get a leading diagonal out of this and it runs to 3,000, that would be the first indication that after a wave 2 down in this area, we would probably make a slight extension over 6,000. Unfortunately, rallying out of that, I cannot support a run all the way up to 10K. I haven't actually worked up the target if we hold off of this low, but actually it wouldn't change that much. So it doesn't matter. So right now it looks to me, after all of Ether's breaks, this bull market is limited to 6,000. The alternative is actually more bullish, but unfortunately is more sideways. So it's we can make this. I've had this triangle out there forever, and I just basically resurrected it after this recent break. So if we go break to 19, it's possible that is the bottom in C, or we go a little bit lower into 1,600, and then the rally is in a corrected D. And then finally C, and then this rally can reach, or this fifth wave can reach 11,000 or 10 to 11,000 The problem I have with this is there's absolutely zero correlation now with Bitcoin, except perhaps maybe if Bitcoin does give us an intermediate swing high at 88K before correcting, then perhaps that 88K corresponds to Ether holding in D. That's the only way I can correlate it. And then when Bitcoin is running to 125K, Ether runs up to 11K. You know, and sometimes the fifth waves in an altcoin can be more explosive. Sometimes Bitcoin can top and the altcoins kind of move on for a little bit longer than Bitcoin does. Sometimes it hasn't been super consistent. So there's different ways that can happen, but this picture to me is super murky, super murky. And again, I'm okay with that personally because my risk is not here anymore. Like basically I've got a little bit more to liquidate, but again, I am favoring, you know, if I go beta to beta, I favor Bitcoin for sure, given the strong downtrend in Ether Bitcoin pair. Okay. So I don't know if anyone has any questions on it. I think what I'm going to do is, honestly, we've spent a lot of time on Bitcoin and a lot of time on Ether. I'm going to highlight probably a couple setups that are that I see in altcoins and kind of cut it off. So because we spent a lot of time simply on asking under the Q&A side. But let me know any questions on Ether, and then I'll move on to altcoins and miners and or equities. And I'll just highlight a couple setups that I like. And again, when I say like, I can see them very easily falling apart given the condition of this market. Ether chart is garbage for sure. Definitely highlighted that. Where's the chart? I still see Bitcoin. This is Ether right here. Do you not see it? And I have the Ether chart up. I do not have the Bitcoin chart up. I don't know. Maybe you missed that switch. I learned to focus on the big ones during the last leg of a bull market, like NVIDIA versus SPX, like the same for crypto. Yeah, I mean, I generally in crypto, I mean, we're dealing with a space where, I mean, how do you frame it? Like, there's a lot of hot air in crypto. Like, there's a lot of vaporware, or basically, when you're buying a stock, you're buying something with legal rights to a company. You know, if the company was to go under, you technically can get some assets in liquidation, although common stockholders are sort of the end of the ladder. But in crypto, you get nothing, right? You have zero legal rights. I mean, even Bitcoin, we got zero legal rights. What we do have is decentralized blockchain where no one can take our property if we memorize our keys or our seed phrases. But there isn't any reason to have like all of these decentralized protocols, right? Unless you want to use the project per se. But we've seen that it's all used. I use example of Uniswap, right? Uniswap is a great project, and Uniswap, at least for a while, had more volume than all the exchanges combined, the centralized exchanges combined. But the Uniswap token price is terrible. I mean, the price action is awful. I dumped Uniswap a long time ago. We took some setups in 2021. I think we watched it in 2022 and never set up in 2022. But that does not change the fact that Uniswap is a great tool, right? And so there's a very big dislocation between sort of the utility value that people propose and is there versus the token value, right? It's like, I think the Avalanche network is great. I think the Solana network is great. The Avalanche token is terrible. The Solana token's had great price action. Doesn't mean the Solana action continues. It's level by level, and so we'll see if it gets to 400 or not. So I'm kind of picking on that one, but again, you cannot tie usage to token price. It's not a stock. It doesn't give you legal rights to those cash flows that comes from the protocol. Ethereum is still probably one of the largest, the most used chains, right? But its chart's turning into crap, right? So you can't link the use of something to the token price. So it just hasn't worked. It just hasn't worked. I mean, and I can talk about a lot of adopted projects from back in the day that have not held up in terms of price, from 6 years in the field. All right. Okay. All right. See the thoughts on BTT given the Ether it holds. Don't like the chart. I'm not going to pull it up. Subscribers know it. They know they have access to it. I'm not going to pull it up. I don't know what condition my chart is in right now, but I have not liked that chart for a long time. Not bullish. Let's see. No, I understand. Stockholders are so far down credit line, nothing is left in a BK. Yes, I get it. But they have some legal rights versus token holders have not, like again, like, Uniswap, they use Uni token to raise funds, right? Or as I recall, but all those people that put money into getting Uniswap started basically got nothing, right? The investors that actually funded it with equity got something, right? The VCs, but token holders got nothing. That's the nature of crypto. You're not buying anything with legal rights. So all you have is a chart. Like you could trade the trends, you can trade the hype, but you got to get off the train when it's time to get off the train, because again, you're not going to be left anything, right? I mean, this idea of governance tokens is all a nice notion, but like, you can say that there's rights on the blockchain with governance tokens, for example, but I mean, what? Like, you don't have any rights to cash flow. You don't have any rights to economic value. You have a right to make your opinion known. Okay, great, but nothing in terms of economic rights. And I get it. Like, you're not going to get anything out of most stockholders are not going to get anything out of a bankruptcy, but you still own a share of a business, legally speaking. So anyway, all right. Any other questions? I'm gonna go on to a few setups. All right, looks like we're quiet now. All right, excuse me. First one's Rune. So Rune has, again, the question in all of these things is, do we have, do we have a viable path to the all-time, to the long-term target? Long-term target on Rune is 100. I mean, I highly doubt it's getting there in the cycle given the condition of Bitcoin. So please don't take it as a crystal ball. I'm just saying that's where the chart leads if it does start to actually work on its setups. But right now it takes 5 waves off this low to 458 to avoid another low. So again, every single low we put in an altcoin, or even Bitcoin, as this cycle goes on, the less likely we're able to hit the long-term targets before the crap starts to hit the fan when the cycle is over. But anyway, I like this setup. I like the long-term chart. We actually zoom out. We're in a larger setup with a nice move up here and holding a higher low, and that's what gets us to a projection 100. But I want to express my doubts that we can do 30x in the time frame that we have. That said, if we do get 5 waves, we do have sort of a more intermediate target that we can develop off of. It's probably roughly in the 12 region. So I actually like that setup, and I'm playing it for now. So I'll skip bonk because it's in a I'll skip bonk. Bohm is actually interesting in that it's hold this too. It has been correcting for a long time. Again, same thing. Now it's a meme coin, so it's more likely to do something crazy, right? So we've got projection. Even if we say it does hold and it takes 5 waves to 1.5 cents to do it, let's see, even if it just gives us a C wave, which is often the case with altcoins, is they fail at C, that would project to 17 cents. So from 0.6 cents, or that's even a 17x from 1.5 cents to get it. Now, in a meme coin, that doesn't sound crazy to me at all, right? When a meme coin goes, a meme coin going. So we'll see. We'll see if some of these meme coins have like one last hurrah. So I like that setup. If it fills in to 1.5 cents, then I'll buy the pullback. I already own some Bohm, but not very much. Let's see. IoTeX, I'm just saying I'm watching. Let me get. I'm watching to see if we can get 5 waves to 4.5 cents, and then I'm just trying to remind myself where it goes. Even if we get a C, we can at least look to 19 cents. So if we get an entry around 4 cents, it can hit 19 cents, and that's pretty darn good if it will set up properly. So watching that. See Ondo, BLZ, MEW, skip those. Coinbase. Coinbase is most likely, in my view, starting a large wave 2 and probably falling outside of a bull market already, with the caveat that it can take this red. I don't trust red, but a lot of my colleagues prefer it, and that would be a setup to roughly 500. So I'm watching that. I cut a lot of my Coinbase in. Actually, I cut early, like down here, so I'm about right even where I cut. I am trading this setup, which should take us up to 200 in options. That's a B wave. Let me get us closer. So up into, let's see, let me get some fibs on it. Yeah, should say, oh, sorry, not 500, should take us 240. No, I did say 240. We tried an options play yesterday in the service. We'll see if that works out. That was very short term, just expiring this week at what, 210, I think is the top end of the spread. But yeah, this one should go to 240 before it drops. Now, if it holds a higher low after that, that's where the move to 500 comes in play. So watch that. So instead of forming an impulsive drop out of this level, bringing in 80, which I will collect for a long-term play, it holds a higher low, then that would set up 500. So there's, again, probabilities. Some people will say, okay, you're either saying it's go down or up. No, if it holds a higher low, it should go up. If it doesn't hold a higher low, it should drop into the 80. So we'll just simply watch that higher low as it forms to get a sense of which way it's going to go, get a stop underneath it, and go. Let's see, MSTR actually has been looking pretty good of late, has not puked at Bitcoin. We got a little bit of that here, but is holding up very nicely in a corrective pattern after an impulsive reversal. So this one actually has an impulse, needs to hold 109 in the circle 2, and then it should push to 285. So that's a nice double if it holds the setup, and right now it looks like it will. We'll see if that changes. And then lastly, CLSK. Again, I don't like miners, but this one has a reasonable chance of getting to 33. That should be a long-term top. So it's only a triple out from here, but that very much depends on this low holding. If by chance it breaks, there might be another low at 750. I will be less interested in that space unless it has a nice impulsive reversal. Again, so I'll be de-risking it at $10 if $10 breaks that support for this local setup, and then see what happens at 7. But right now it has a reasonable chance of holding and developing a setup to get us up to 33. Do I love this setup? Absolutely not. It's not great, but at least the one thing about CLSK is that at least it's been in a stronger uptrend and had some consistency around structures we use in Elliott Wave, where Marathon, BTTBT, Riot, they go on and on. Iris Energy has been in fits of consistency with Fibonacci pinball, and then sort of fallen out of it and then gone back to range bound. And so there's really no edge on those charts. So I've just largely avoided playing them. It's not that they're bullet bearish yet, but they shouldn't they have gone a lot farther while Bitcoin tripled in 2024? I think so. But again, but worse than that is that they show no upside breakout setups right now. All right, any last questions? Coinbase is a terrible broker, looking at my account multiple times a week. I don't use Coinbase for trading, but I have a different view on the stock. I mean, most of Coinbase is making money off institutional and government anyway. Hardly making money off retailers to just keep that exchange around. But yeah, no, I don't trade there. Except for I've been using their futures a little bit since I'm cut out of futures. Otherwise, they're the only legal altcoin futures in the US. PacG, FTX. Any thoughts? I thought FTX was out of business. PacG, I mean, PacG just moves with gold, so Avi's the old gold guy. I have traded it using Avi's charts, but I'm not the gold guy. You want a gold chart for that. Will there be a recording? Yes, there'll be a recording, and Elliott Wave Trader will post it out. It'll take a couple days though. Subscribers will get it right away, and those subscribed to Elliott Wave Trader will get it today as well. But if you're outside the service, then you'll probably get it Monday. Tweet it out. Yeah, I use Kraken too. Yep, I mostly use Kraken. All right, any other questions? All right, let me hang up. I'll get the recording up for subscribers and those in the market room in Elliott Wave Trader. And then, yeah, if any other questions come up, let me know. Talk to you guys later.